It happened during our work too. After the meeting, European man is waiting for activity from women. He doesn't know what to do because he got accustomed to active women in his country.
Exactly.
And while our women asks, I liked him, but I don't know why he didn't write me, why he didn't call me. I can't do this first. It's not normal.
Tsar Experience.
Привет из Odessa, Mama. I am back in Odessa. Welcome back to another episode of the Vodka Vodkas. Me, Connor Klein, and today I have Jelena from Prime Matchmaking again. We made a few videos before, and today's topic, we're going to talk about something that comes up quite a lot because I receive a lot of messages about it, and I see in the comments below these podcasts and other videos about traditional women and how traditional, inverted commas, women in Ukraine are. But is that true at all? And what exactly do we mean, Jelena, by a traditional woman? Because does it mean something like, obviously we're saying that in opposition to something else, in contrast to, which is kind of maybe more modern US or Western European interactions, relations between men and women and the whole dating culture, and that has maybe a bit different to here in Ukraine, in Eastern Europe. Is it something like, the man is to be the man, he's to be dominant, he's to be assertive, he's to finance everything, be the provider, the protector, the woman is supposed to be the, homemaker? Is it something about women having to look pretty, being a doll? What do you think it is exactly? What is traditional? Are we talking about like 19th century etiquette, or are we talking about something different? How would you see it in Ukraine? What's traditional and how is that different?
I think the traditional woman or woman with traditional values, how our clients request often, it means that the woman is paying just more attention to her family than to her career. And if she has to choose, then she would choose family things. But at the same time, modern Ukrainian women, modern Ukrainian girls, almost all of them, they have some work. Some of them, many of them, they aspire to enjoy it, to get not only money from it, but to get joy also. And I think that it's one point to the level of personality development of them, and still they want to be married, they want to have a strong family, to have kids, and it happens quite often here. Even if successful in career woman, she gets married and her husband is a good provider for a family, most probably she would stay with her kid for the first few years after giving birth to him.
So you mean that she would not work during those first few years? She would sacrifice her career.
If she has
and
a choice, yes, most probably she wouldn't. She would stop working for some time and devote this time to kid, and then get back to work. But still, some Ukrainian women still choose to hire nanny, at least partly sometimes.
Okay.
But I see from family traditions like giving priority to her family.
Giving priority to family. Is there also something about maybe the man not competing with the man to be more successful? Would you also say that's a traditional value in Ukraine or not? Because that's something that comes up that some guys ask me about.
I guess most of the girls, they dream to have a man who is more smart, who is smarter, who is more successful in his career, who makes more money, of course, than she does. And if we have some ladies who are top managers, directors, or have their own business, of course they expect they have more requirements for men, for sure.
Okay, so if they are successful themselves, they just see the bars that they want someone more successful.
Stronger, yeah.
So they definitely don't want to be the partner who's more successful.
But if you talk about competition, like as I understand it, if a woman is boasting it and trying to put his attention that she is so superstar, it usually doesn't happen. If, for example, if such a successful woman, she is dating a man who is lower than her by level of income, for example, she wouldn't just emphasize it, just coffee and say goodbye.
Okay, she just wouldn't be interested at all, right? So,
yeah.
So there's kind of like a little bit of hypergamy there, that the woman is trying to get up higher socially. She wants a man who's going to be better than her, and that I think this comes from evolutionary biology, because we have this contrast. I'm going to go into it in another podcast episode soon. where we have this evolutionary biology is hardwired into us. The man is to provide and protect. The woman traditionally looked after the children, traditionally, but just biologically over the centuries. And that the man is normally stronger and bigger, right? And then we found the last 100 years huge developments in, say, women's rights. When we first got the right to vote and partake in society, work, and actually become more independent, and you have reproductive rights that are not as dependent. Society also, especially in Western Europe, tends to provide social security. So there's this new reality, should we say, where there's no actual need to be so dependent on these more traditional, gender roles, but our own evolutionary biology hasn't caught up with that. So it's kind of what we want deep down. I don't think it's actually that much different in Western Europe or North America. It's just that things have progressed a little bit further in terms of, like, say, social conditioning, and than it has here in Eastern Europe. Would you say that's true overall? Or you
Yeah,
don't
I think so. I think so, maybe to some extent. But I just wanted to add some information that when the couple is forming, then when man and lady are dating, they should discuss what is important for them in a family and what means traditions for them both, because it can be different for each person to some extent. For example, some clients, when they apply to me, they tell men they want traditional woman, and when I ask them, I always ask it, what do you mean by that? They answer, some of them answer, I want her to cook, to clean, to bring up our children, she shouldn't work at all. Some other men tell me that I want her to pay, to make family her priority, but still I want her to be developed in her intelligence. So I want her to work part-time, and it's not a problem for me. I hire a house cleaner, and we can hire cooker, so it won't be a problem at all. So traditions, again, they are different for, and here,
But what is the tradition here? What is the traditional one? That's a good point you bring up, that what's traditional for a lot of guys who come to Ukraine is not the same thing at all, because what you're describing there, like, first of all, traditionally, if the family is very wealthy, they always paid for a nanny, they always paid for a cleaner, and they always paid for a cook, right? So this is the first thing. This kind of stereotype that all the women in Ukraine are cooking and cleaning and looking after the man, the kids all the time, that, as far as I can see, doesn't exist really at all. That's not really what we mean by traditional, right? We mean it's more about these values about prioritizing the family, not necessarily being, as you said, a domestic servant where you're going doing cooking and cleaning and stuff. So if that's what you think is traditional, well, probably you're going to be very disappointed in Ukraine. We'll go into that a little bit more detail.
Cooking is very important in, I think that in Ukraine, that here most of the women, they cook in a very good way, very delicious food, most of them cook.
Do you think there's a difference? This is a nice segue into it, in terms of generational difference, in terms of how they cook or maybe see these more traditional roles.
Yeah, for
like
sure.
we'll say women over 40, women over 30, and women over 20. How they
I think
perceive
there
these
is a
things.
difference for sure. Ladies who are women who are older than 50, they are perfect cookers. I think that 40s, 30s, a little bit less. And girls in 20s, actually I don't communicate with them so often, but as I talk with men and they describe me what is happening, they don't cook so much. As, as
That's
they
my
expect.
experience. I can tell you that in my experience, women under 30 in Ukraine, if you compare it certainly to Western Europe, like I was born in Ireland, I would say there's not much difference in how they can cook between women in Ireland, women under 30 in Ireland versus women under 30 in Eastern Europe in general. So don't come here thinking that you're getting a domestic servant, especially if the woman is under 30. That's just a stereotype that no longer exists. And the reasons for that are that during the Soviet times, right? I mean, there wasn't much available, so you had to be able to cook, you had to be able to clean, you had to be able to fix things yourself. Well, today it's just like more or less anywhere else in the world, you can just buy these things.
And I noticed that most of usually in most of the cases, our local men or men from Russia, when they apply to us, they expect women to be more domestic.
Yeah.
But your European men, they are more. It seems to me they have more respect to our women, and they don't require so much as our local men do sometimes.
Well, I think it's just that dating has evolved, or gender roles have evolved in Western Europe a little bit further, and that there's more division of things like helping out at home, looking after kids, and also that women are a little bit maybe further in their careers on average, right, in terms of how much money they can work. And there's more of acceptance that maybe the woman would make more money than the man, and that's maybe, but it depends on the person. Evolution biology doesn't affect everybody 100%. So but I think there's still that issue in Western Europe if the woman makes more money than the man. For a lot of men, And I think there'll be a lot of men who'd be more interested to come to Ukraine and find a more, inverted commas, traditional wife for that reason, that they're less likely to push to make more money than them, right? And have this more clear gender role.
Yeah, but I got quite many answers from foreign clients when I asked why did you decide to look for a woman here in Ukraine, or why did you get divorced. Many of them, they tell me about career-oriented ex.
Yeah.
It's first reason, and some other problems like alcohol and so on that their ex had. But in many cases they tell that they want a woman, to be at home more, to be with kids more, and to devote more time to him.
Okay, so you see it that the kind of guys, I mean, could also be you who come to Ukraine, that they're looking for this more traditional woman, in inverted commas, that's going to spend more time at home with the kids. Not necessarily that they're cooking and cleaning, because they should have enough money if they want to just pay for a nanny.
Sometimes even a woman can pay herself, not to do it.
Exactly. It's not to have a domestic homemaker and a servant, but more to be able to not push as hard to be bigger than the man, and as I was saying, of course, to prioritize looking after children when they're young, for example.
And in many cases, our women, they are more, when I look at different families already many years together, our women are more active in relationships. They organize some family events, something like that, and they are more active in this. And I think it's also about family traditions for women to make a proper space for everyone, to make holidays, to think where they go, what they will do, because our local man, they in many cases, if he's busy with his work or business, in most of the cases he just accepts or not accept, and doesn't have enough time to choose the right places to go with kids and family. Usually women do it in many cases.
I think this is something that happens maybe after that. Maybe just pull you up a little. Yeah, that's better. Yes, this might be something that happens before, once people get married and they have a long-term relationship and they're obviously committed, they have children together. It obviously changes the dynamics quite a bit. But this is a nice segue into, if they're dating and they're starting off, right? Women organizing everything in Ukraine?
No. In the beginning, no.
I laugh at it. They don't organize anything at all, right? This is the whole thing. And I think this is a big difference. What you could say is more traditional. Because I talked to my dad, I always mention to my dad, dating in Ukraine is a bit like in my father's time in the UK and in Ireland, right? Many years ago, right? So we're talking about obviously more than a generation ago today. And that you had this clear gender role, that the guy organized everything, he pays for everything.
In the beginning.
In the beginning, right? So when you come here to Ukraine, don't expect Ukrainian girls to organize anything. In fact, as I say, a lot of my advice is just be assertive and organize everything.
She's not a scammer, Scammers, they are ready to organize everything.
Yes, if the girl is actually suggesting to go places and telling you, trying to lead you, be very suspicious in Ukraine. It's probably.
I had clients told that they met a girl online on Tinder, just 2 messages, and she says, "I'm waiting for you in Odessa so much. I will come by taxi to you to meet you at the airport." Of course, if they just had 2 messages, when most adequate women, they wouldn't go to the airport to meet a stranger. It's surprising.
Anything like that, big red flag, right? Especially if you're being led to a particular restaurant, it's possible that there's a little bit of agreement between
the
restaurant and
women
the
are usually more modest, I would say, and they expect a man to be more active, to take initiative, and then they understand that then this man is interested in them, not just she's pulling him all the time. And it happened during our work too. After the meeting, European man is waiting for activity from women. He doesn't know what to do because he got accustomed to active women in his country.
Exactly.
And while our women asks, I liked him, but I don't know why he didn't write me, why he didn't call me. I can't do this first. It's not normal in our society yet.
Exactly. The dating culture, for sure. It is going to be more traditional, inverted commas, because it's a bit like a few generations ago in Western Europe and in North America. Women are not proactive at all. They just basically are passive, and they expect the guy, they expect you
to surprise them.
To surprise them. Well, basically take them on
Sometimes.
an experience, right? This is the idea of a date. And what happens if, it's interesting. When I was traveling, I actually met a girl, actually here. We're actually in Arcadia in Odessa. I met this girl during the summer. She was from Western Ukraine. And then, this is one of the great things about Instagram, is that I saw that she was actually in Minsk, which is kind of random, when I was there. So we met up, and she went traveling with a guy as a friend who was from Flanders, so northern Belgium, right? And he was very Western European about this whole dating culture, right? So we'll say modern, definitely not traditional. And he even told me that, yeah, I don't see why I should have to pay for the girls, why I have to do everything. They're supposed to be equal. What would be the reaction if, the guy watching this video were to come to Ukraine and expect to split the bill on a date?
Lady wouldn't be happy, for sure.
What would she do?
Most probably, as I also saw in one interview, it will be their last date. And we even had a case with local couple. By the way, it was our Ukrainian man and our woman. And she was just checking him and suggested him to split the bill. He was happy. They did it. And then she told us, I will never meet him again. It was my test.
It was a trap to fall into.
I think that it's better for couple if it's quite reasonable that man doesn't want to spend a fortune for the first date. He doesn't know if he's interested enough in this lady yet. So I advise you to go to some coffee shop, not maybe so expensive, but where you can pay the whole bill.
Exactly.
It's very important it's like a sign for girls to understand that you are stronger, you have enough money at least to pay for your coffee.
A coffee is going to be maximum €2. So if you can't pay that, then
don't go to dates at all.
Yes, exactly. Forget dates. So I think that's a great piece of advice, because what I also recommend to my clients is, like, you don't want to overinvest, and I never recommend bringing a girl to a place where, I often hear guys say, oh, this is a great place for a date because it's super expensive and fancy looking. But if this is not where you hang out and you don't know the girl at all, I don't advise that you bring her somewhere like that, because first of all, you're going to create these expectations. First of all, I should say you're definitely paying the bill there. So don't take her somewhere that you can't afford to go to, right? Just suggest somewhere else that you can actually afford to pay the whole bill. Or, as you said, just go to a cafe, because the other problem with, say, going to a fancy restaurant and having dinner is that then you're committed for a certain amount of time with the person, like at least an hour. And if you really don't feel like there's that chemistry, coffee is a lot easier to exit from and say, hey, it's nice to meet you, but
it's the same.
yes, it's like also the girl doesn't want to be stuck there for. I actually heard Gisele Bündchen, the supermodel, saying that she refused to go on dinner dates before she got married, because she just said, you're stuck there for an hour, you have to find an excuse to leave. It's awkward when the bill comes, because obviously she was in America.
And it's torture date.
Torture date. So definitely just choose somewhere that's going to be interesting, or where it's going to be a nice, relaxed atmosphere to meet someone, and that you can afford to pay the bill for both of them. And so if you weren't to have money, then definitely go for an ice cream in the park if you can't afford even the coffee. That's what I would like to say.
I just wanted to add it. I just have it on my mind. Like marketologists, they teach business that. When you work with clients, first of all, a client better should pay you little amount of money than better when he has enough trust and he likes what you give to him. The same happens with the girl. You start pay from little expenses, and you understand if you like her enough and you want to continue, you invest more and more. Because it often happens if person invests much from the very beginning, including emotions and hopes. Then, if he is disappointed, it will be a disaster. He has many negative feelings, thinking why I did it, why to do it. Better to go step by step. There is no rush.
Exactly what I would say. Just like escalate the investment as you get more involved. Now, would you say that there is a difference between the girls that, in terms of traditional values, that you're going to meet if you come to a big city like Odessa, Kiev, maybe Kharkiv, maybe Lviv even, and a small village?
There will be difference for sure. Again, first of all, I think the city girls, they are more ambitious, more educated in many cases. They got accustomed to our level of life, and of course they have much more choice of men. Especially Odessa, there are many foreigners each time, especially in the summer. So they are more picky, of course, and they expect more from men to do for them, for sure. But does that mean they expect to do less for the man in terms of a traditional role, because they have more options, as opposed to a village girl who was maybe not got so many options? Because you said they're more picky, right? So they have just more requirements for a right man to get married. They will date for some time, won't be in rush.
But does that mean they're more traditional or not?
They are less traditional than village girls.
Okay. But is it because they have more choice? Is that the main reason? Or just because in the village they are brought up a different way?
I think that because of the village, it's always a smaller place, more strong traditions. And I noticed that women from villages, they are, in many cases, they are more hardworking here. when they finish study and start to work, they are more goal-oriented, more hardworking, and still they appreciate family values, relationships a lot. They often form long-lasting relationships. I noticed when I talk with different girls.
So what about girls who come from the village and they live in Odessa? Do they become Adesike? Is there any difference once they live here for 2 or 3 years? Are they just like the city girls in Odessa, or do they maintain this kind of more traditional gender role?
I think it's impossible to be different in an absolute way. She was brought up in a village, and it will stay with her. These values, they will stay with her for whole life. They will change. I think that they will change mostly by appearance. They will become more stylish, more pretty, maybe more makeup, right makeup, and so on. But as for, again, it depends on the lady. If she gets more successful at her career, most probably she will pay less attention to such things like home.
I think there's again a big generational split on this. I think girls who are in their 20s here, even if they come from a village,
and we know examples, many examples when especially girls from the village, especially when they were very poor in their childhood, they go to the extreme and they pretend to be luxury girls only in luxury restaurants, pretended, and they appreciate too much. When money becomes the most important thing for them. And usually, in many cases, I heard that it's a girl who had a poor childhood.
Well, that can also be a girl who grew up poor in Odessa. Definitely girls in their 20s. I just think with the flow of information for Instagram, and as you said, it's all this kind of like attraction of what's expensive or what's luxurious. That's just the access to that in terms of information is a lot bigger than before. I don't think there's going to be a big difference very quickly after they live in Odessa and they get exposed to the same things as the girls who grew up there personally. Of course, if the woman is older and she's in her 30s and 40s, she probably wasn't exposed to that so quickly. She's probably a bit older, so it's less likely to affect her, but I don't think that's going to be a major difference. Do you think things are changing in Ukraine?
To which
Do you think Ukrainian guys are going to continue to play this more traditional gender role from their point of view? Or do you think the younger generation is changing?
Of course, there are changes. I think that it's impossible for people to stop in changing values, especially there is a globalization and people can talk from other people from the whole world, from Europe, from the US and so on. And there are still many high divorce rate in our country. And, sometimes even our local men, yes, they started to change their views on family life. For example, if they were paying for everything their first 40 years of life, then they start to think why I should pay, because there are many independent women already and they are ready to be with me even when I don't pay, so why should I do it?
So you think this is going to be maybe a change in Ukraine? Do you think it's like generational, that now, because also Ukrainian guys travel and they see what modern dating, we'll call it, is like in, say, Western Europe or North America, that then they think, okay, why am I paying for all these girls all the time? Especially if they have jobs.
I think that it's one of the reasons, but not the only of changing. Everything changes. That women now have more possibilities for development, for being successful in career, and many of them, they understood it's a pleasure. It's very cool, and they have choice now. That's why, yes, maybe. There are even some ladies I heard, I didn't meet them personally, but I heard that when their husband stays at home and takes care of children and while she works, so there is a complete change of role sometimes. If it's okay for one exact family, then it's okay.
All right, so this will be more a modern setup as opposed to a traditional. So things are changing, and that's why you see such a difference in the generations. So I think in summary, we can say that on average, yes, they are more traditional if we were to look at it from the point of view of prioritizing looking after the family as opposed to career once they have children, and not wanting the man in the relationship to be lower than them. Not as accepting as that, say, in Western Europe. But there's a difference in the generations, and if you're expecting a domestic cleaner and cook and all that stuff, then definitely under 30
better just hire. It will be just less expensive, I think.
Domestic servant, it would be just cheaper to hire than to marry a Ukrainian girl. You're basically not going to find it. But I think the big thing is in terms of when you're dating, not maybe when you get married, but definitely in terms of your dating, that there is certainly this stronger gender split in terms of roles. Women are supposed to look, this is something you didn't bring up, women are supposed to look beautiful and presentable. That's their
Yes.
main thing on the date. And men are supposed to create the date, basically organize everything, pay for it 100%, and just lead the woman around. And that hasn't changed. That is definitely a very strong
Yeah,
gender
as the
difference.
first stage, yes, it's okay. It's like that, like you described. But in the family, I see that women are more active. If a man is working a lot, she takes care of home fully. And again, we are talking about some extremes, but there can be a mixture. Yes, to some point, woman is working just, for example, 4 hours per day, and he helps a little bit with home. She doesn't work at all. She does all homework. If they both are on the same level and having a good career, they can just go to any restaurant and don't care about such things at
But
all.
these things, they become less of a priority. So if you are interested in checking out Yelena's services, you can go down below. I got a link to her site there, especially if you're looking for a woman over 30 or over 40. I think this is probably the better demographic. If you're looking for a woman under 30, she's not really going to be able to help you. But if you are looking for over 30, especially over 35, then it's a good match. So what else? What are you going to offer my viewers if they go and check it out?
Thanks
you told me.
thanks to Connor, you will get one bonus date. If you prove to be a good client, good man, good boy,
Good boy.
during the dates.
That's not true. If you're a bad boy, they'll like you even more. Trust me.
Yeah, so I appreciate my reputation a lot among local people, and for me it's important also to provide good service and good meetings for my girls too. So when I have sometimes ramen after each date, I get very many good and kind words from girls. As they say, thank you for such a meeting, such a wonderful person, and so on. So if you are like that, you will get bonus date for sure.
Okay, excellent. So go check that out if it's of interest for you. Drop me a comment below in the comment section if you have some opinions about traditional gender roles in terms of dating between, say, Eastern Europe and Western and the West, we'll say overall, or maybe with your own country if you are from somewhere else or living somewhere else. What else should we say? It's going to be, if you are interested in women more likely under 35, then of course you should consider living the Zara experience. I've talked about it so much in all the other videos. There's an application form below. Go check it out if you fit the criteria, and maybe we'll be jumping on a strategy call, and maybe we'll be hitting a city together, like maybe Minsk in Belarus, Moscow in Russia, or even here in Odessa, Mama, in the summer, because as you can see, it is winter. Maybe you can't see because the weather is unseasonably warm, although now the sun is going down, my hands are going blue. But there's no snow in Ukraine almost at all, and we're in the beginning of January, so Happy New Year, Snow Garden.
Yeah.
And I will be leaving here in a few days to go to Belarus and then later to go to Russia. So a lot of great content coming from there. Stay tuned for that. See you all very soon. Do побачення. До свидания. Ciao. See you in the
Bye.
next video.
Bye bye.
SAR Experience.